The episode begins in the year 447, humanity betrays our hero, and he comes back as an even stronger Dark Lord. The 6 heroes and the Demon Lord fought a huge war all over the world. The army of skeletons led by the Demon Lord runs onto the battlefield to fight the heroes. However, the heroes have been given godly powers and have now changed into angels. Leonis, the Demon Lord, was sitting in his room and looking around from his ball. All of his bases have been taken down, so this is the last thing they can do to protect themselves. Some human soldiers were killed by the skeletons, but one of the heroes can bring them back to life. Suddenly, a huge tree-like creature appears, making the Demon Lord angry because he knows it to be the evil sage hero, who stopped being human to get more power. Leonis stands up and calls for his staff to join the fight, but his friend Fenrir and the faithful general stop him. They remind Leonis of a promise he made to the goddess of rebellion. She had asked him to do something when he was still human, so Leonis chose to accept defeat. He puts down his staff and walks toward a door as his castle falls apart. Before he went in, he said he would come back after 1,000 years and take his throne back. So, he put his own soul in the grand mausoleum and sealed it there. After 1,000 years, we see 2 girls exploring Leonis, Riselia, and Regina's old house. They are going to check out the ruins because they have heard that monsters called voids are making nests there. They walk down a hall and come to a big door. Riselia knows it's the king's mausoleum, where Demon Lord kings rest until their last days. Regina tries to open it, but she thinks they need to get something to blow it up. Riselia then sees some writing on the door and looks up the language on her phone. She finds out that the door is alive, so she touches it. Suddenly, the door opens on its own. She grabs her gun and goes inside, where she finds a big crystal. Then she sees a person inside and decides to help him. Then we see Leonis in a place that is empty. He sees Riselia, the god to whom he promised to do something. He tells her that he has finally found her, and she tells him that they haven't seen each other in over 1,000 years. Leonis says that he couldn't do anything about the god powers given to the heroes, so he sealed his soul to keep his promise to her. She tells him she's glad he remembers it and walks off into the air. Leonis tries to stop her, but she just tells him that she hopes they'll meet again. While that is going on, Riselia is trying to shoot the crystal to get Leonis out of it. He moans about the noise and asks himself if it's already been 1,000 years. He thinks that the reincarnation rite worked. Leonis then sees Riselia trying to shoot the crystal. He figures out that she is a person and thinks she is trying to steal from his grave. So, he decides to show her how powerful the Demon Lord is again. He breaks the crystal and knocks her down with his magic. He first thinks she is from the tribe of High Elves, but he is wrong. He then plans to kill her by trying to steal from his grave, but he stops when she asks why a child would be locked inside the crystal. He looks at his image and is shocked to see that he is in his human form when he was still a hero. The Demon Lord was a hero in the past. The girl asks him why he was locked inside the crystal and checks on him to make sure he's not hurt. She then gives him a hug and tells him that Big Sister will look out for him. At first, he is angry, but in the end, he passes out. She gives him some cookies when he wakes up later. He thinks that his body is bad because he passed out from something as simple as hunger, but Riselia was there to save him. She then asks if he's okay, says she's a 15-year-old student at the Holy Swordsman Training Institute, and asks for his name. Leonis tells her his name and thinks he can use her to find out what's going on in the world. She sometimes says his name out loud and says it's cute. He doesn't like that his name used to mean chaos and fear, but now a random girl thinks it's cute. Then he finds out that his role as Demon Lord has been erased from history. She asks him how old he is, and he says he's 10. She then asks him if he remembers the monsters from the void who took him away, but he doesn't know what she means. She then says that Gaps are enemies from another world and that she and her schoolmates are knights who use swords to fight them. Leonis is at first confused because 1,000 years ago, people like him, Demon Lord, and the goddess of resistance were the world's enemies. Then, Riselia says that she and Regina were looking into these ruins because they think it might be a void base. He knows that she just happened to find him, but she told him that the door was locked until she touched it. Then he asks her how old she is. She tells him it's the year 64, which throws him off. They hear a big boom all of a sudden, and Celia gets a message from Regina saying that she ran into big holes. Celia grabs Linus right away and says she will protect him. Celia tries to shoot down a giant void that comes through the door. He gets angry because they are breaking down his grand mausoleum. He tries to use his magic to stop them, but he trips and falls on his face. She tells him to stop and shoots into the void, but all it does is make him laugh. It's Regina and her huge gun. All of a sudden, a laser beam destroys the void's arm and shoots its body down. When the void stands up, Regina turns into a gun and shoots it in the chest. Even though she was shocked to see Linus, Regina just told Celia to leave and get away while she held down the void. The two run away, and Linus thinks that nothing went the way he planned. His spell to change back into a human failed, so he went back to being a human before he became a demon lord. Aliens have taken over his grand mausoleum and are ruining everything. He wants to deal with them, but he can't because the girls are there, and if he shows his power, he won't be able to use Celia to learn more about the world. Then, Celia says that they are almost at the top, but a crystal falls and turns into a wyvern void. This is nothing like the wyverns he usually sees. Celia tells Linus to get away from the monster while she deals with it. Her gun then changes into a sword, and she gets ready to fight the monster. Linus, however, just ignores this and starts to cast his spell to kill the monster. Celia pushes Linus away and tells him to run, and Linus cuts her in the stomach. She is lying on the floor in a pool of blood, and Linus can't understand why she did it. She tells him to run and get away with Regina in her last words, but Linus moves closer to her. As the wyvern gets closer, another hole opens up. She says she's sorry she didn't protect him, and then she closes her eyes. Linus will hold her hand until she dies, but he thinks she is a fool. He only kept her to find out more about her, but she chose to die to protect him. In fact, he could have easily blocked the wyvern's weak attack with his power. He wanted to know more, but he didn't think she had anything to offer him anymore. But she reminded him of Riselia when she defended him, which showed that when Linus was the hero, the people he tried to save turned against him. He became the demon lord because of this. More voids show up and try to attack him, but his magical shield stops everything. He thinks it's annoying to be human again because it makes him feel things again. The voids keep throwing out strikes, but they are all blocked. Then he turns around and calls his staff to him. He tells the voids that he became attached to Celia's bravery and plans to punish them for disturbing his castle. He casts a level 8 gravity magic, and the pressure from the spell breaks a void. Another void tries to attack, but he just stops it with his barrier and changes it so that it attacks with spikes. The last void tries to escape by flying away, but he just jumps and casts another level 8 fire spell to fry it up. But there was one thing he didn't think would happen. After using the magic, the bones of the void were still there, which had never happened before, not even with dragons. He thinks it's because the amount of mana he has now is only a third of what it used to be. Then he sees that Celia is barely still alive. Since he is the demon lord, he usually doesn't care about human lives, but he still knows her because she tried to protect him. He can't heal her with holy magic, but he can use any spell that has to do with death, so he decides to use his power to bring her back to life. He uses a spell to bring back all the blood she lost, which heals her cuts. In the meantime, Regina kills the ogre void and tries to get in touch with Celia, who is still asleep. Linus hears it and thinks it's amazing that technology has come so far in such a short time. When Celia finally wakes up, she hugs him right away because she's glad he's safe. She then looks at her cuts and can't figure out how she's completely healed. She doesn't know what to do because she thinks she died. Linus then tells her that he healed her back with holy magic, but she doesn't know what magic is. He then learns that Celia and Regina didn't use spells to fight the voids. Instead, they used their advanced magic weapons. He knows that people can't use magic in this time, so they use magic tools that don't require practice or hard work. Celia is still confused, so she asks him if he used the power of a holy sword. He doesn't know what she means. She tells them that some holy swords can heal. In the Excalibur Academy, she thinks he can use that power and that's why the voids took him. She then gives a full description of what holy swords are and how they work. Basically, people use their power to fight voids. Humanity almost lost the war against the gaps 60 years ago, but children woke up the power of the holy sword to control fire, wind, and other things. He realizes that this power is different from the one he uses, so he chooses to keep it secret. When Regina shows up, the girls ask what happened to the empty space. Linus tells a lie when he says that it went away while he was shaking with fear. Then, they decide to leave the ruins. Celia asks Linus to ride her bike with her, which makes him confused. He joins her, and as they drive back to the school, Regina keeps teasing Linus. After a long drive, Linus can finally see the city, and he realizes that it's the 7th attack garden. Check out the next movie. We'll see you next time.
Regina and Celia think about the day as they all make their way to the top. That terrible day, Celia's parents died. The mobile fortress as a whole was attacked, and the kids and people who couldn't fight had to hide. They hid in a safe place, but they could still hear the fight, including the bombs going off and the effects of the battle. In fact, their light goes out and then comes back on all of a sudden. It's not a surprise that the little kids are afraid to support each other. They talk about things that don't matter, and then they fall asleep. The next day, when the fight is over, the shelter door opens and they can see again. When they come out of the shelter, they see that the city has been destroyed. Almost all of the nobles who fought in that fight died in it. Celia falls to the ground and starts crying right away as she thinks about her parents. Regina tries to comfort her as they both think about what awaits them in the next life. At this point, they take Leo to the 7th mobile fortress, Leo. From afar, he sees the building and asks them what it is. Is that where they were going? They told him how important the fortress is to them and how they keep it safe. In fact, Celia says that they are protecting it and that she would do anything to keep the fortress safe. She can't hide who she is or her responsibilities any longer. When they finally get to the fortress, it's much bigger than Leo thought it would be. There's more to it than that. He calls it an island, but they tell him that their fortress is actually a giant float and not really on the ground. They are trying to push it toward the ocean so that they can attack the void from behind and win the battle, which they have already done. Talk like this. Cellular gets a call saying that she sent the kids' information to the government. Leo saved her life when she was almost dead, so she was already under his control, even if she didn't take him. Leo has no idea what they are talking about. He has no idea what they mean with their words. He then asks them to explain more, telling him that they believe he is one of the lost children from Boyd's invasion and that they are sure his family has been looking for him. They offer to find his home. He can join the school while Celia tries to explain how it works to him. Regina says she has to leave and asks to get everything they need from the store. Regina leaves and Celia tells Leo that he needs to do this before he can join the school. He has to do certain things in a certain way, so he has to stay there for tests. The tests are standard procedures that all new members must go through. The school is where young kids are trained to fight and protect the city in exchange for being given great powers by the gods to defeat voids. After her short speech, the school would give them all a new start in life. She tells him to go inside and says she'll meet him at the gate then. She quickly rides off on her bike and he walks into the building. There are many things that worry him. Before he fell asleep about 1,000 years ago, things were really not going as planned. People have come a long way. There have been many cultures and growths. There are now other enemies they have to fight. The gaps. Does he think he can do well in that fight, even if he is ready to do it? To stay alive in that place, where he looks like a child, he needs to do more. He chooses to call his best friend and mate from his old life. They hear him and come running. It's the first time they've seen him in over 1,000 years. Their ears pick up the words of their master right away, and they greet him. They say they had been in deep sleep too for all those years, and are so glad to see him. Dish asks him, though, what's the deal with his new body? He has to say that his attempt to reincarnate failed and change back into the form he had when he was a person. The reason Dish wouldn't know how he looked as a human hero is because he met Dish after Dish had turned into a demon. Petri tells Lord that he looks really cute and that the new shape fits him, but Dish doesn't care about his new look. She can tell right away that he doesn't like what she said, and he says sorry right away. Then he tells them he has come to ask them for a favor and calls them dirty people. His job is to get them to do something, and they are awake and ready to do it. They have also seen how people have changed. Leo agrees that things have changed so much that he needs more knowledge before he can act. They are not the same civilized people that they left about 1,000 years ago. They are asked to help him find out what humans have been doing to prepare for the Demon Lord's return. Since humans don't know much about the Demon Lord, he tells his servants to be very careful and not to use any devices that could reveal them, since humans are on the run and don't want to be caught. When Petri asks Leo what he plans to do next and if he will follow them back to where they hid, he says he isn't going. He is in a body, and bodies have needs. He needs clothes, food, and a place to stay. And living with people is the best way for him to get them. His answer is that he will be staying at the academy with the people who had reached out to him, so he can also use that time to learn more about humans and their new culture. They promise to do their job well after they leave, and he sends them away. He goes into the hospital to take his test. The first door he goes through leads to a room with long pipes all around it. He isn't sure what the room is for or why the pipes are there when all of a sudden, water from one of the pipes falls on him. But when he walks through the door, the lights get brighter and red lights start to show up. The system also makes a loud noise, and he is very holy. The noise stops though, and the light turns off as it should. He walks out of the door and into the next one, not knowing what else he will find. But that's the end of the process because he now has his ID card in front of that door. That's when Celia comes up behind him and takes the card from him. The card would be proof of who he is until he is fully accepted by the government, she says. But she needs to make a note of the card so that she has a clear record for when she turns it in. As they walk back to her bike, she takes a picture of the card and gives it back to him. She says she needs to rest at home because she feels a little weak before going back to the office for her training. She tells him that she hasn't woken up her power yet and that she plans to keep training and fighting until she does. He doesn't understand why the gods would share such great power. She offers to show him around the area if someone is brave, since Celia hadn't awakened her power yet, so he can at least see the sake of Gakuin before he follows her to her room. As they ride through the city, he notices how happy everyone is. He remembers that the city is supposed to be at war, which is why everyone is so happy. When he asks her why the city looks so calm, she tells him that only the most skilled warriors are sent to fight. Everyone is at peace because the mobile castles are safe and make sure that voids don't attack them. She gets to Seiken in the end. The building is really big. She shows him around the government and tells him that Gakuin is the city's main armed group and where all of their direct orders come from. The look on his face isn't what she's expecting. The building is so big that she thinks he will be shocked. She also tells him that everyone who sees it for the first time is always very excited. But he is thinking about something very different. He thinks about how to get into that kind of building without losing the fight. He could understand why they had a training room, a library, a dance hall, and even a bathhouse as she shows him around the building. She shows him his class, where he would get all of his lessons, the library with many books, and the bathhouse. He didn't know why a school would have a dance hall. Well, kids who don't play would get bored. Then she dances the same way and agrees that they need to have fun when they're tired. They begin to walk to the room. She shows him the dorms for girls and he sees that every woman who walks by compliments him on how good he looks. This makes Celia tell him that he would be popular. Their fun trip quickly went bad when Celia met a senior she doesn't like. For some time now, the senior had been flirting with her. That day, he asked her what she was doing with the child and if her weak company was now taking care of kids. His warning that she will be kicked out of school if she doesn't awaken her power soon makes her want to join his platoon and become his toy. This way, she can stay at this school. She says no to his offer and turns to leave. But he gets angry and pulls her hair. Leo is mad about this. The guy is scared by his power, so he bows down to Leo's feet. The senior won't give up, so he pulls out his gun. But another senior stops him and tells him not to. Their system isn't allowed at school, and he's also breaking the rules by going to the girls' dorm. He walks away in a way that is embarrassing, and Sally compliments the older woman. The woman then asks about Celia's mission and says she's sorry she didn't follow her. She measures Leo for his uniform, and Celia feels weak. Once more, Sally stops on the tree for a while and continues the trip later. They get to Celia's room in the end. Other dorms Leo has seen on his way look a lot younger than this one. She tells him that the school is built on merit and that the only way to get a nice room is to be one of the smartest people there. Regina is already asleep when she gets there, so she takes Leo to her room. While Liu is taking a bath, she asks him if he would like to join her platoon, Moon. Her squad is weak because she isn't strong, but she needs to stay at school and seal her stay. He is scared when she walks into the bathroom and sees him naked. She treats him like a big sister, so she offers to help him wash his hair with shampoo. He reluctantly agrees, and as she does, she tells him that every platoon will be all over him because of his healing power. She says she won't be mad if he doesn't come with her because she wants them to stay friends. He does, however, plan to join her. He tells her she doesn't need to be at that school because he doesn't trust other people to help her if she is in danger. She knows she can't defend herself when she feels helpless. She says she wants to be safe. Then she passes out. Leo pulls her on close and has her mouth on his vein. He tells her that he was lying. She asks him if he has healing powers. He says no, he only has dark powers. He informs her. At the end of the show, the real her died in the ruins.
Celia wakes up in her bed, not sure what happened. Leonis says she passed out because she didn't have enough energy, so he had to give her some of his. It's not clear to her what he's saying, so she asks about Lena's real name. He only says that he is an old sorcerer who came back to life from the crystal and uses skills that no one remembers. He also tells her that his magic can only control death and that he can't really fix her or bring her back to life because he doesn't have the power to use holy magic. He was only able to save her by making her an undead. She asks him if he can't use the holy sword. Power Leonis shows that he used the name of a level 10 spell, create Elder Undead. To be honest, he wasn't even sure if the magic would work. But she came back as the vampire queen, the strongest of all the undead helpers. She worries about being a vampire, but Leonis tells her that she didn't have a mother, so her vampire urges made her drink some of his blood. She believes him, and he says he's sorry he wasn't able to save her properly. Lexus decides to listen to her story when she asks. 6 years ago, she lost her city to protect her parents from an attack, and she tells him about it. They both used holy swords and did their best to keep the city safe, she says. She is sad, though, that she had to stay in a home with Regina. After that, she trained to bring the holy sword to life and fight gaps. He doesn't know that she can still make a holy sword appear, so she asks him. He just tells her that being a vampire queen has made her a lot stronger. She's still a little scared, but her mood changes when Lena's stomach makes a noise. She makes fun of him and says that he's already spent more time in a girl's room than eating. They go to the cafeteria and she asks if she can still eat normal food since she's a vampire. Leonis tells her yes. Because she is a high-ranking one, she can. She will get better after eating, but it takes too long. That's not the best way for her to get her power back. She asks him if he knows what he wants to order yet. He asks for bread since he doesn't know how to make most of the dish. While she is telling him that he needs to eat well, he brushes it off by saying that undead don't need it. She gets upset by this, and he sees that she's not used to being dead. He tells her he's sorry, and in the end, he does what she says. After that, he says he has money and shows a gold coin. In secret, he's telling himself how rich a demon lord is. It turns out he's broke when Celia asks him what he is. He tries to say that he's a rich guy who can buy the whole business. He is hit hard when Celia tells him that real gold or money is useless these days because everything is bought with credits. After that, they heard a girl talking to two guys in the background. The guys make fun of the fact that she's not wearing the school uniform and try to take advantage of the fact that one of them has her hold. With her wooden sword, she quickly knocks them down. The girl then scolds them and says she's allowed to dress that way. The guys then run away. Celia runs to the girl quickly and calls her Sakuya. Says Sakuya, everything happened. She was supposed to be in a tactical drill, but she snuck out because it was boring and chose to gamble until she was caught by those two guys. Then she talks about Leonis and says that Aline already brought him up. Celia sticks to her story that he was taken by Gaps and she saved him. Sakuya then tells him her name and shakes his hand. Is she someone who has spent her whole life training for the sword? He asks himself how long she has been training. Then Celia tells Sakuya that she is herself. Platoon's vanguard enemy and pays for everyone's lunch. While they're eating, Leonis asks Sakuya a question. As for why she's dressed that way, Sakuya says it's traditional clothes from her home country and a gift from her sister. Void struck and destroyed her village, and she was the only one who made it out alive. She is now working out to get stronger and get back at him. Luz says she's sorry for asking about this, and Sakuya says that normally everyone has to wear academy clothes, but since it's a gift from her sister, she was allowed to wear it after the meal. Celia and Leonis go to the training grounds to register his magical sword. He meets Alto, the teacher who is in charge of his test. She tells him that she is going to check out his holy sword to see what kind it is. After that, he calls up his demon, Lord Staff, and Alto questions. He's a support who can do all sorts of things depending on the situation, Lena says about his skills. Then he saw some robots and asked what they were doing. Celia says those tools are void, or simulators, and that they can copy void patterns of battle. He tells Leonis to fight it because it's set to a low level. He thinks that a level 2 gravity spell will be enough to finish it quickly, but it destroys all the robots. All of Celia and Alto can't believe it. Alto asks how he was able to beat that robot and if his holy sword is really a support type. People around her start to look at them because she wants to know more. Then she starts ramming the void simulator to a higher level, but the annoying Muel shows up and stops them. He wants to take care of the test. Leonis tells Muel he's on the same level as the robots to make fun of him, but he doesn't mind. The man gets so angry that he calls his holy sword a Harry Potter wand, and his pet girls do the same. Celia says that a 5-on-5 fight isn't fair, but Mule just says that his holy sword can control other people as his weapon, and Lexus is full of himself when he says he will beat the 5 noobs. Celia agrees to help him fall for Musel's plan because he will let her help Linus as long as she meets one condition. It's possible that she will become his toy if she loses. Linus knows that Celia only wants to clap, so he plans to use that to his advantage. He agrees to the terms, but if he loses, he can't bother Celia ever again. The guy is so stupid that he ends up being too sure of himself and agrees, as you know. Celia starts when Linus tells her that no one can touch his girl. Getting red. Then Celia asks Alto for a training sword, which is a copy of the holy sword made just for practice. After getting ready, they decided to begin. Celia sped forward and hit one of the girls, knocking her down. Then she tries to get Mule, but another girl stops her. Lena does nothing but watch, thinking that her natural features have gotten better since she turned into a vampire queen. Celia has to parry the Pebbles Mule because one of the other girls hits her with her weapon. He tells one of his pets to take care of Leonis while Celia is busy, because he's a loser. The girl charges forward and attacks with lightning, but Leonis only uses a low-level move. Spell to block it with his shadow, and then he holds the girl back with it. Then Celia starts to get the upper hand on the first 2 girls she's beating. The third girl steps forward, but Celia knocks her out. Then Celia chooses to deal with Mule, but all he does is use his wand to stop her. He tells her that this is his real power, the holy sword of dominance, and she starts to understand what's going on. He takes the sword from her and tells her all the dirty things he's going to do to her later. But first, he chooses to deal with Leonis, who is in a bit of a tight spot because the other 3 girls got up and are surrounding him. Muel Leonis thinks he could use a level 2 spell to kill them all right away, but all of a sudden he hears Celia talking to herself about how much she wants to protect him. After that, she begs her holy sword to show up. A bright light shows up on her hands because she really wants something. After that, the light changes into a holy sword. Regina, who had her holy sword out, could not believe what she saw. Celia is able to get away from the chains. It's clear that Mule is your loser. What is going on that makes people not believe it, letting Celia move quickly? Without any other choice, she breaks his wand in half, freeing all the girls he was controlling. He gives up like a pathetic loser. Everyone cheers for Celia, even Regina, who hugs her right away because she's so happy that she was able to bring her power back to life. Celia can hardly believe she did it later. Lexus helped her, but she thanked him, but he told her she had to do it because it was her duty. She's not sure what to do, but he tells her that it's her job to protect her boss. Even though she doesn't get it, she laughs it off and tells him she will guard him. It's her choice to ask him for a favor after she pats him. So that he can make her stronger, she asks him to join her guards. He agrees to the deal right away. They have a party to welcome them, and Riga cooks a huge meal. The party is also a celebration of Celia's holy sword. Getting up, Aline and Sakuya applaud her and talk about how well he did on the test. They then quickly ask if Celia has already named her holy sword, but she brushes it off. After that, Aline calls Lexus to her room so she can look over his work. This starts the real talk. Their dorm is full, so Luz will have to find a place to stay with someone else. Regina quickly gets to the subject she wants to talk about. During the clap session, she even promised to bake him treats every day. Sakuya also wants a piece of that, but she's been gone most of the day. Aline joins and says she has a lot of plot in her room. Leonis has a lot of choices, but Celia steps in because she sees herself as his guardian. So, she will make sure he has a good night's sleep. The girls think there's something wrong, but Lexus says he'd rather stay with Celia, not because it's cold, but because they can keep their secret safe, especially since she needs to get mana from his blood. Like we said, Leonis is checked out in Aileen's room. The eye of her holy sword is used to look through his data. Leonis is impressed, but she says she can use it for now. He's not sure what she means, but she tells him that she lost the power of her holy sword and can't do as much with it now. She says that she was in the 7th platoon, which used to be the best group, and that she was their main attacker. Up until 6 months ago, they would often go on void elimination missions. Before they knew it, they were being attacked by holes while looking into some ruins. It was a trick. It was too late now. The group broke up, and she was the only one left alive. After that, she lost most of her power and locked herself in her room. But Celia went to see her so often that she agreed to join the platoon. After looking over all of his molecular information, she finds something interesting. It says that Lupus likes to look at story. She tells him it's bad to be bad. He then sees a map on her screen and asks if he can look at it. She agrees and gives him a tablet with the map on it. As he looks it over, Lupus sees that the void distribution area has changed over the last few months. He then calls Blacka to him and learns from him that the gaps are a lot like the monsters the Dark Lords used against people. Then he tells Blackass to look into the places shown on the map. Black is gone, and all of a sudden Sherry shows up. She has a story too. She learns something about people. They found out how to make donuts. Luz finds it and tastes it. Good taste. He knows she's only been eating the whole time when she starts taking more food out of her bag. He gets a little mad, but she tells him that she also learned something. People don't know anything about demons, Lord. They don't even know about the war 1,000 years ago between the Dark Lords and the 6 heroes or the gods from the past. He tells her to keep looking into it. Then Sherry says that Celia became Lena's servant. He doesn't understand why she sounds so upset, but she ignores him and calls him a fool. It makes him mad. It is said that Celia is a vampire queen who has the secret holy sword power. She is the first thing they need to do to change his spirit lord's army. She gets mad at him and tells him she hates him as she runs away. At the same time, a group of divers is looking into the ruins below. They find a huge tree that looks like a face. The tree starts to strike and call out Lon's name. The divers will watch the next film. See you on the next one.
That night, 2 divers were exploring the ocean floor and saw a strange creature. But as soon as they saw the great sage's face, he crushed them both with his vines in the 16th year of the holy god. The calendar, an ugly loser who never learned how to open his eyes, led Leo to the side of a huge orc that was killing the nearby villages. Leo was one of the world's 6 greatest heroes. But the man opened his eyes for the first time ever. When they got to the site, Leo looked around to see where the monsters were but saw that the man was gone because he was scared and tried to draw his sword. 3 mages used barrier magic to stop him from moving, and when they caught him, 5 more troops ran over and put chains around his neck. Even though they held him still and pulled him up, he was able to free one of his legs. The men, on the other hand, stabbed him with their spears. Leo tried to fight back, but he had already lost too much blood, so they just dropped him on the ground. Even though Leo was dead, the troops were happy to have finally killed him because the people liked him more than the king, and he was strong enough to take down their whole kingdom when they left. Leo heard a voice from heaven telling him it wasn't his time. He also wondered why he had walked into their trap when he knew they were going to kill him. He did say, though, that all he wanted was for people to feel safe. When she asked him if he felt bad about saving them from the SS rank calamity, he said no, because he didn't think they were bad. The goddess told him that it didn't matter if they were bad or not because the whole world is bad. To start a revolt against the world, she invited Leo. When he asked her why, she told him. He was the only one she told him. She was able to ask for help, but then she admitted she was lying. She really did it because she had been watching him the whole time and fell in love with him. She told him that being a hero was boring, so he should become hers. Leo woke up from his dream determined to find Riselia and bring the monster back to life. His eyes moved to her. Lord's troops at the same time. Celia was sleeping, but Leo told her to wake up, and she did. She was confused about what had happened to her. Since she was now his helper, Leo showed her the symbol on his arm and told her she had to do whatever he wanted. When she heard that, she knew he could do whatever he wanted to her, but she told him to be gentle because she doesn't like it. That was rough, though. Leo told her that her body was useless because she had spent the whole night sucking his fluids out. Celia said she was sorry because she couldn't help wanting to drink his blood while he was sleeping, but Leo told her he doesn't mind. He agreed to let her drink his fluids as long as she stopped brushing her teeth. She was wondering if they were talking about the same thing. F started by calling her and telling her that there was a huge meeting where the leaders were talking about huge things happening in the sea. Last night, Celia asked her what they were talking about, and she said that 3 troops had disappeared without a trace. She also said that she would look into what was causing the trouble, but her whole fleet of missiles was the problem. Brother, we need to stay focused in the back. We need to stay on task after the call is over. She told Leo that today they don't have school, so she planned to do something. While they were training together, Leo wondered if she wanted to drain all of his body fluids first to get her mana back. At the same time, the island's leaders were still looking for the divers who had gone missing. But when they watched the tape from the previous night, they saw that the divers had been taken by a void creature. After all, the 3rd attack garden was destroyed 6 years ago, and a building very much like it had shown up under the island. One of the generals told the army leader to get his troops ready for the next battle. But the army leader knew that getting ready for battle would make panic worse, so he decided it would be best to hide its presence for now. The phone started to ring, and when one of the leaders hung up, he said that the building hadn't been seen since last night. Celia was training at the same time against the drone robots. She knocked them off and cut down one of them. She was done with her lesson on the system, Leo thought. I was amazed at how smoothly she used the sword, and I wondered if she had ever been trained. So she told them that she had been teaching herself how to comfort herself since she had never had a family. Her Leo told her that he would teach her how to use her mana to improve her physical skills and get the most out of her vampire queen magic. But he wanted to really challenge her, so he called up his wand and used it to create a magical bubble of cover from the ground up around them. He started to spawn a bunch of skeletons, which scared Celia because she had never seen any before. She started running towards them one by one, though. She began cutting them all down and jumped to avoid their attacks as Leo called up hundreds more until she was beaten. Every one of them, she moaned because she was so tired, so Leo used his wand to eat their bodies. As she thanked him, Leo told her that she could recharge her mana because she was already much stronger than she was before. Even so, she still wanted Leo to train her more and show her how to use the sword. But before he told her to watch what she was saying, he started to growl because he was hungry. At the same time, F-Sphere was looking for the missing men in the attack garden, and divers were still looking for their bodies on the other side of the island below. This was the last time Sakuya's ugly behind lost any money. As she got closer, she saw Blackus sitting alone. She saw that he didn't have a Kalar, so she chose to name him Kiran. When he growled at her, she tied her food to him and left him in F's dorm. Mrs. Huge Cannons came in and told F to try on her new warm suit made of liquid. Before making Leo drink all of her liquid, F asked if it was good and wished her luck. Sakuya then walked in and said something smelled like fish. Sakuya told Regina that it had to be the new food she made, but after sitting down to eat, she said it had to be something else. When Regina asked F why she was wearing her outfit, she told her that she was still looking into the whole attack garden. Even though it was her day off and Sakuya was already asleep in the city, Leo was still amazed at how well their society worked and how peaceful everyone was. Sherry's jerk boyfriend turned into a cook to feed Leo the best food. When her boss asked her to cut up the potatoes, she told him she had a sharper knife and cut everything up along with his plate. The boss yelled that this was why her master had rejected her, because of how ugly and pointless she was. What did he say as she was cleaning the stores outside? While Celia drove Leo around and went to get him food, Sherry looked at her with jealousy and thought why he would choose an ugly old woman over her. A few minutes later, Celia arrived at the restaurant. He wasn't sure why the kids who came to see Celia were there because they were at a shelter to see her. And she told him that they made money by selling food like a restaurant. Leo saw that some of them were his age and thought that was funny. He thought back to the times when he was hungry and didn't have much money and saw her smiling around them. He was glad that people in the world cared about those kids. Someone big and ugly asked him if he was friends with Celia. While Celia was unpacking her food, a jerk came up to her and grabbed her skirt, but Leo shot him before he could do any damage. He was told by Celia that he was just a kid and didn't know what he was doing. He got his shadows out of the way. When the orphanage guardian finally showed up, Celia told her that he was the lead she found in the dungeon. So everyone ran and thought he was the coolest guy for being able to stay alive against gaps. When Celia told the kids that she had brought donuts, they all ran and were excited to eat their favorite food. The guardian told them to be quiet. Leo realized as he looked at them that this was the place Celia wanted to protect. However, the place he wanted to protect was still under the water. The new divers were not sure where the building had gone, but someone inside the cave heard something. When there was a jolt against the wall, F saw the monitor and read it. Sakuya, on the other hand, felt it in her bones. Two guys were talking about how Annie just had her climax. Video was, but they saw huge trees all over the building ready to eat their useless behinds for not liking my videos. But Leo liked eating his food with the orphanage kids at the same time. Watch this movie until next time. Our episodes today begin in a village under attack by giant goblins. In this village, we find a young man named Leo, along with the Dark Princes who used to protect it when they were human. We also notice a girl from the Dark Princes attempting to find a way to get rid of the giant goblins. Suddenly, an old Dark Prince named Arakil, using a very unusual and scorching spell, tells her that she will burn the entire city and humans will die along with the goblins. The old prince tells her it doesn't matter, as long as they eliminate these giant monsters. The scene then shifts to the humans, who are suffering greatly from the high temperatures produced by this spell. Leo decides to intervene and takes his sword, cutting the radiant enchantment in half and disposing of it. At that moment, the old Dark Prince questions Leo's actions and why he stopped his spell. Leo informs him that they can defeat the goblins without killing the humans. Leo then proceeds to attack the goblins, one by one, until he has defeated them all, bringing relief to the city's inhabitants who were in danger of being destroyed by these giant creatures. The old Dark Prince is left frustrated and vengeful towards Leo. On another front, we learn that the giant monster lurking beneath the academy is the same old Dark Prince, Arakil, who is one of the princes of destruction. He has joined forces with a cursed tree and intends to destroy the city containing the sacred sword. He also wants to exterminate all humans and has entwined the tree's roots with the city from below to gain control. Meanwhile, an emergency meeting is held at the academy when they notice an unusual proliferation of an entity spreading rapidly in the depths beneath the academy. They fear it might be one of the mysterious creatures they call the Voiders. They start analyzing its movements to understand how it reproduces. Suddenly, the fighter Elphany contacts them and informs them that what is under the academy is a massive colony of these mysterious creatures. The fighter Elphany informs them that the colony beneath the ocean floor is large and inhabited by giant and mysterious monsters. They realize the urgency of the situation and decide to take action immediately to eliminate these creatures as quickly as possible. In this chaotic moment, they declare a state of emergency. The scene shifts back to Elphany and Sakura, who are extremely anxious and want to reach Leo as soon as possible to inform him of the discoveries beneath the ocean floor. Meanwhile, Leo is at an orphanage having a meal with Celia, admiring the delicious food prepared by the humans. He reflects on the kindness and abilities of these people. Back at the central control base of the Academy, they receive news that the strange entity spreading in the depths has taken control of all the control bases in the Academy. They dispatch soldiers to deal with the situation, but to their shock, all communication is cut, and all the soldiers are killed. The creature is now gaining control of the main power generator that governs the entire city, causing panic and fear to spread among the inhabitants. The military equipment is prepared, and the fear-stricken residents prepare to confront the monstrous entity, which appears to be spreading like a cancer on the walls. They fire their weapons, but to their amazement, when they cut off a part of the entity, it regenerates. The scene then shifts back to Leo, who finishes his meal and starts playing with the children, creating small skeletal structures to entertain them. The children are fascinated by his abilities, and he brings joy to their faces. The narrative quickly returns to the main generator, which is now completely engulfed by the spreading entity. It is destroyed, plunging the city into darkness. Leo and others realize that something peculiar is happening, and they hurry to the scene to investigate further. Everyone is shocked as mysterious portals start appearing in the sky, releasing extremely strange creatures. The Academy immediately activates a state of emergency, closing all doors and deploying all available weapons to combat the bizarre creatures in the sky. The numbers of these creatures are overwhelming, and the defensive measures struggle to eliminate them all. Sakura, Elphany, and Regina join the battle, utilizing the power of their sacred swords to participate in the fight against the creatures. Celia communicates with them, learning about their war against the monsters, and expresses her willingness to help. During this chaos, Leo calls for Sherry's assistance, and she informs him that they've discovered a highly unusual entity in the ocean depths responsible for opening these portals in the sky. Leo rushes to Celia and asks her to evacuate the area and protect the children in a safe place. Celia summons her sacred sword, bringing joy to Leo because she has become strong and is determined to avenge her father who was killed by these mysterious creatures. Celia excitedly starts killing many of the flying monsters in the sky. However, while she's engrossed in combat, she doesn't notice the creatures sneaking up behind her. Leo uses his magic staff to eliminate these hidden threats. Suddenly, the portals in the sky continue to expand dramatically, and giant monsters emerge from them. Sakura wields her sacred sword and, along with her friends, Elphany and Regina, manages to eliminate many of the giant dragons. However, they are shocked when a colossal three-headed dragon appears, and the monsters keep pouring out of the portals. The battle rages on. As the monsters attack, Leo warns Celia to take her precautions, and she proceeds to attack and swiftly eliminates all of the creatures. In the midst of this battle, Leo realizes that these monsters are the same ones he encountered in his grave. Suddenly, a massive dragon appears and targets Leo. However, Leo is reluctant to reveal his full demonic power, fearing that others may discover his connection to the demons. Leo decides to use a small portion of his power, casting a magical spell that conjures large fireballs above the dragon, causing it to burn and perish. But as the dragon falls to the ground, it rises again and launches another attack. It breathes fire, threatening to consume Leo and his allies. Just as the situation becomes dire, Leo's wolf companion comes to his aid, distracting the dragon. Leo, wielding his magic staff once more, uses a powerful spell to defeat the dragon entirely. Celia is left in awe of Leo's immense power and questions how he possesses such strength. Suddenly, the ground beneath Celia ruptures, and cursed tree roots emerge, ensnaring her and pulling her downward. Leo rushes to her rescue and realizes that the monstrous entity is Erekil, the Prince of Destruction, who has merged with the cursed tree, altering his appearance. The outcome hangs in the balance as Leo confronts the monstrous Erekil, and the question remains whether he can save Celia from impending doom. To continue following the rest of the events, please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell for future episodes.
魔動力備蓄により継戦能力ドラグブラストほらまだまだ来ますよ砲撃が3体一気になる俺はな第10海底広域我が意向の前に行って貴様か
A memory of 334 years in the past, where, in a dark castle, we see a young Leonis who was expected by Riselia for what he would tell her about his recent battle, where he encountered a quite powerful enemy, although clearly the immortal demon, Lord himself, was no match for him, and he did not forget her, since he brought her a small gift being the treasures of the palaces that they looted, something that pleased Riselia. But for the moment it would be kept in the shadows. A spell learned thanks to the Prince of Shadows Blas, who was his servant dog. Even if his kingdom was collapsed, he could save them all with his shadow, although Rizel, after seeing all his achievements, she wanted to reward him properly by standing up and invoking a powerful sword, but not just any sword, since at its current level a holy sword would not be of its height, but on the other hand, a demonic sword would be the most appropriate, wrapping the holy sword in darkness. But Riselia, before handing over the sword, revealed to Leo that that sword has conditions such as that it cannot be used unless some conditions are met, although she knows that Leo knows the conditions since the sword questions the truths. We return to the present, where Leo discovers that the mysterious monster was one of the great 6 heroes. He do a fire spell to try to see under the earth, although he quickly remembered that he has a seal which connects him with Rizel, so he can confirm that she is alive quickly. Blas appeared among the shadows, lamenting that they have to face that old enemy again, but Leo suspects that Araquiel is not only a monster, but perhaps he is their own king, and although Blas could not believe that his old enemy is still alive, this gave him hope. He came out since then he was. It is very likely that Riselia has also revived, but for now Blas wanted to know what they would do with all the children, since they were in the middle of an attack. But while Leonis was observing them, he could recognize that. Look where too much power terrifies people's hearts, something that was repeated in the years, both in the past and in the present, so he went directly to the little ones to ask them to take shelter in the cabin. Although to his surprise he thanked him for saving them from the Boyds, although he believed that he would hate him, since he let them kidnap, Celia still swore that she would do whatever it took to bring Rizel back to make all the children happy. So it was time to leave using an underwater barrier spell which would protect the children's home. But for extra security he would bring in his strongest elite men who also protect us. So nothing bad would happen to them as long as they stay inside the restaurant. And although this made the children happy, but a part of Leo wondered if he really wanted to protect them. But he quickly remembered that it is his duty is to protect the home of the tribe of the sword, which would be applied since Rizel is part of her tribe, so she will follow her ideals, although before leaving Black shows him what a human gave him, being a little food, so Leo wanted to know where he got it from. But Blas stressed that he doesn't know her name, only that it was a kind girl who put food on his neck after he let her caress him, although at that moment, Black feel a small sound was heard, and when search entered, the earth found Rizel's communicator, where the girls were trying to find out how he was. Even the dolphin spheres had been sent to search because in the middle of the city, Sakuya was trying to kill a big monster, managing to kill some of his heads, being supported by Relina, who practically she was exhausted. But she didn't stop using her spiritual weapon to bombard the monster, and as if it weren't enough, many more appeared behind her. So they had no choice but to continue giving their all while the end called for reinforcements from above, since they knew they couldn't. I would be very hesitant without Rizel, but Leonis took the communicator to tell Rizel the current situation, promising that he will bring her back, although he needs her location. He hoped that she would use the spheres to have a better location, but in the end he refused to help him, asking her to wait for the army, although Leonis was firm that she would go with or without their help. However, in the end, she did not know what to do since her friends were at the limit, where they even had to fight dragons. But thanks to Regina's power, they were immediately eliminated. Even thus, the protagonist finally asked him to see his spheres, where they had a strange round mark, this being caused by Leo, who would later give his explanations, but for the moment he would go by Rizel. So at last, without any further options, he revealed the location of his friend, who were the underground sector number 7 near the center of the tactical city, where for some reason there are magical reactions, but to talk too much a Boyd went straight to the end, who, thanks to a whip, was saved. This being Sherry's, who did not want to be seen and feeling somewhat exhausted since she did not want to save other girls. But even so, that was better than a boring part-time job. Once with the information from Rizel Leonis, he arrived at Sector 7, where, with her trusty Courseful Blas, they would go for a Raquel. Although Blas recognizes the area already had exploded before, so it will be easy to get there. Although he asks his master why he doesn't use Sherry for the mission, but Leonis states that although she tried many times before to eliminate him and has a good level of combat, she is not up to the situation. Even so, Blas wanted to know why he did so much for humans, so his master had to admit that he really likes humans, which reminded Blas of lions from the past continuing on his path, but to get there even faster, he would burn the entire wall. But to his surprise, Araquiel had taken full control of the area, but this did not matter to Leo, who was sure that he would recover his family. So the PRA quickly invoked a fire spell with which he hoped to quickly finish off his algae. And although this worked quite well, Araquiel had a very strong regenerative power, managing to remain practically as good as new. But Arquil would recognize his old enemy, where he would ask him how he is alive, since he must have died about 1,000 years ago, and although the protagonist surprised him more, that he could speak with. That new form revealed that someone like him would never die. Although Araquiel called him stupid since those 1,000 years in which he was not there, the world changed drastically, revealing that this world regenerates with the empty star, something that Leonis could not understand. So he asked him for an explanation. Araquiel revealed to him that he is the chosen one of the moon, while he invoked small crystals of spirits which were captured, monks, which surprised Leo since he was working with the monks of the old holy order and Rizel was. He was inside Araquiel, who couldn't move. But upon hearing Leo's voice, he managed to calm down. Even so, Araquiel wouldn't make it easy by trying to attack the protagonist, who was left with no choice but to start using spells to eliminate him with the help of Blas, who lamented that the situation since Araquiel's power did not seem to have decreased. So the battle would not be easy, although Leo noticed a little more power, assuming that he was absorbing the power of the city. But the Archnowing immediately used multiple spiritual magic, which gave him advantage of shooting in all directions. And although Leo dodged the sword, he could not avoid a blow to the arm, which would make him angry. So he would try again to finish off his enemy with Blas's magical power, but his attacks would have no effect since the captured Minim monks gave him too much magical power, so he would defend and attack eternally and with practically no options. Leo would begin to apologize to Blas, since he was about to do something stupid, although at that moment, Riselia would look for a way to free himself, since he wanted to help Leonis. Although the more force she exerted, she only managed to get the seaweed to cut her, but none of this mattered to her Rizel, who regretted being so weak. But thanks to that, She was able to invoke her spiritual sword. Leonie kept trying to get closer using spells to wear down Araquil. Looking for the moment indicated Rizel using her blood, which had been spilled on the wall, managed to make it obey her by cutting all the algae. After all, she was the vampire queen, and just at that moment, Leonis was able to determine her location by shooting something at her chest, which would give her a powerful transformation immediately, freeing himself from Araquil's algae. But at that moment Black Ace had to retreat, since he had used more magic power than necessary, which was not his problem. Since now the protagonist was not alone being able to meet with Rizel, although, since it was his first transformation, almost fell due to not knowing how to use her wings. But Leo managed to stabilize her, glad that she finally managed to use the power of the vampires. Although Rizel admitted that it was thanks to him for shooting his blood into her chest, but Leo knew that that was just a small activator and the true force was inside her. Although an angry man interrupts them, who assures that, if he cannot eliminate them directly, he will do so indirectly by starting to gather all his power, which Blas recognized immediately, since he was thinking of burning everything in the area. Both his enemies, the city and him, if necessary, but Leonis had a solution, although it would take some time, so he needed Rizel, who should take care of him a little, which she swore to do, showing the power of her holy sword, where with a little of blood, he was able to finish off the other algae, leaving the path clear for the Onis who he planned to use in the gift that was once given to him in the past. Since there was no more need to contain himself with Rizel safe, but he quickly remembered Riselia, who warned him that that sword questioned the truth. In other words, it retained its will as a sacred sword despite being a demonic sword and not being met that condition the sword could not be used. But, as Rizel continued to defend the plot, he would know that he would use his sword to protect the kingdom, something that he really wanted to do, managing to dismantle such a sword, which, once Riselia told him that a sacred sword given by the gods was given to save the world, something that impressed Araquil. Since it was impossible for Leonis to use it, and although he knew that he would lose, the protagonist warned him that his destiny is perdition, but before eliminating him, Leo assured him that he would be able to defeat any evil managing to cut Araquil in half, who would cease to exist in that world. So the boys would have no more orders stopping appearing, and the few those who remained would stop attacking, which the headquarters noticed, being surprised that today would not be their last day on Earth, and the command center quickly noticed an explosion that came directly from the magic furnace, so they assumed that their leader was stuck, and for consuming so much magical power, it exploded, being a good stroke of luck. Although in reality, it was thanks to our protagonists, who would meet with their friends to be happy that everyone was safe and no one was hurt. But the next morning Leonis did not want to get up from the bed, or rather he couldn't do it, since his weak body was used more than necessary, so he was practically exhausted, not to mention that his magic power was also on the floor. Although Rizel quickly appeared because he wanted to bring him some gifts like a necklace that the children they did. Since he bravely protected them, this made Leo happy. Although Rizel wanted to ask him for some blood, since she lost a lot in combat, which the boy had no problem with until his friends discovered her by mistake, leaving her looking like a big pervert. The city was badly affected by what happened, but of course, work to fix things is already begun. It was so bad that even the power plant, which gives people their magic, was badly damaged. Tell them that those plants are fixed. They are going to put in place tools that turn the sun's rays into mana. NC is really impressed by how the tech keeps coming up with new ways to solve problems. What the Kif said about this land being his kingdom is true, but he still doesn't understand a lot of things. But when NC tries to get into the vault, security refuses that he is who he says he is, and a mythical spirit tells him that he needs permission from the administration bureau to get in. Anyway, NC tells him that he is a student at this academy, but that doesn't make the owl spirit believe him. It says that Leo should make a request to the bureau and have his credit report, criminal record, personal history, and school results looked over. Bro just got ripped off by the government, so Regina walks in and covers Leo's eye from behind while giving him a hug. She basically tells Leo to take it easy for a while and enjoy the feel of her two big, soft jellyfish against his back. After NC gets away from her, Regina says she's really here to return some video software. She's surprised to see Leo here because she thinks he's looking for unicorn videos. To make things clear, NC says that he is here to study the old language that was written all over the ruins where he was stuck. Because of this, Regina tricks the spirit to get to them and tells Leo to keep that a secret. Black Small Square, it looks like these are fake spirits made by the Philip Foundation, since most of the real ones were gone by the time the Void Invasion began. As Leo and Regina walked into the library, they both got an invitation in the mail for the award celebration. Also, the 4th Imperial Princess, Ulterior Beatrice, will be the host. It seems like a good time for Leo to ask some questions about the top level of humanity's kingdom. Anyway, Black Mall Square Riselia calls Leo and asks him to meet her for lunch. The guy says he has to run some errands first, so he can't go, but he'll meet her later at the harbor. When asked, Regina also says she doesn't want to meet at the harbor, so she walks away and wishes Leo luck with his research. Oh no, she felt so left out. The scene then cuts to a black lion named Busty Colossa planning to kidnap the 4th Imperial Princess today at the event. His old friend Jack tells him that after they take the princess, they'll demand that their brothers who are being held captive in the Imperial capital be set free. Also, Durgan Jack, the 3rd werewolf, is already mad at humans for treating the demi-humans like trash. Last but not least, a leopard named Giraffe and a goblin. Basta is told by Elsa that the humans have holy swords, which means they can't fight them. After the Alpha Wolves group is done talking, a mysterious girl walks in and starts to mock them, though she actually intends to assist them with their mission, as she reveals that she has a power that surpasses the holy sword. And out of the blue, that girl summons a sword and starts transferring some sort of power to Bast that literally slices the whole tree with a single swing. Apparently that mysterious girl just handed Basta a demon sword that's granted by the goddess. So with a power like that, everyone starts to believe that their abducting plan now makes sense. There has to be a catch to that, though. She suggests then to hijack the Hyperion along with the princess. Besides, if they steal a ship, then they can sail directly into the capital and get their pals back, and now it's time for the catch. The girl wishes a sacrifice for the goddess in return, so she wants them to bring back some holy swordsmen for her goddess. So upon agreement, that girl introduces herself as Cherik, the Witch of Everdark Forest. Meanwhile, MC is wandering around and thinking about what he will do after restoring his demonic army. Their MC buys a bracelet for his minion, but it leaves him shocked when the shopkeeper reveals that this bracelet is actually made by an elf who lives in this city. He even reveals that here, along with elves, demi-humans, werewolves, and lions, also reside anyways. The Imperial Princess then makes her entry and starts waiting at everyone, while Regina is keeping an eye on the Princess MC, and the girls unite at the harbor, and to cheer Riselia up, NC hands her the keychain he bought for her. Didn't he buy a bracelet? But one way or another, Riselia gets flattened by his gesture and hints to him that he is on his way to lay girl and become the demon Lord in the bedroom. For a second, NC thought his identity just got revealed, but it appeared to be some sort of adult joke. Never mind. The group then starts to walk towards the ship to board, so MC asks them why Regina isn't joining them, even though she strikes him as a party girl, and, to be honest, the girls also don't have a proper answer for that. But they're the replacement of Riga walks in. Yes, I'm talking about Fenris. Apparently she is here on behalf of the president of the executive council, though Aline calories her down as she keeps mocking Riselia for having a clumsy group as she walks away. Riselia tells MC that she is Venus Edits, a girl who has been stuck with Riselia since she was a kid anyways. The abducting mission also begins as Bastia and Haza killed 2 guards and literally cut their face skin off. Moreover, as they wear the guards' facial skin, they turn into the people they just killed. That actually looks so creepy. The ceremony began as the ship sailed away while NC and the group were having a great time, though NC separates from the group, As he sits next to the pool and takes a look at his research, turns out somebody attempted to cover up the historical past. There isn't a single mention of the gods, the 6 heroes, the goddess of rebellion, or the 8 demon lords plus. He can't find any details on why sorcery died out while magical technology evolved. Their Sherry bumps into MC disguised as a waitstaff. She then reveals that the ship is powered by a monocrystal, and the defenses are somewhat similar to the assault garden. It even has artillery and auto cannons along with flying weapons, and before she would leave for further intel, MC stops her and tells her that he has a gift for her, since she is his only loyal maid, so the guy summons a churro, which actually disappoints Sherry because she doesn't find perishable objects as presents. Okay, so who is going to have that bracelet? My guest is Reg, though Sherry immediately teleports away as Riselia walks in, and dang, NC is about to nosebleed as he sees Riselia in her swimming suit along with Takara, but the demon lord legit fights his inner demons and declines the polite request of joining the girls because he didn't bring a swimsuit, but say no more, because Riselia apparently planned that out as she brought a boxer for NC in the very next moment. Riselia teaches MC how to swim, but that doesn't seem to work because our boy can't get his eyes off on those floating footballs, while these people are living. Regina, on the other hand, starts to feel lonely after isolating herself. On the other hand, Basty and Giraffe kill Arya's bodyguards as they are taking her to the conference room. While the princess is surrounded, her pet manages to run away, and just like that, a great panic gets created as the demi-humans reveal themselves in front of everyone. While Hannick summons his sword and activates the face thief. Magic Fenris acts over smart as she believes that only humans can wield the holy swords. She even summons her pet to engage in a fight, but Ella shoots at the ground and warns her to not take a single step or she'll kill the hostages, and for the safe side, Jack places a bomb that will explode. If anyone tries to do anything funny, Team Alpha Wolves ties everyone up and takes their cell phones like it's shown in the movies. They even separate MC and his group plus Fenris from the crowd. Ella then informs everyone that they intend to take the beloved princess hostage, because apparently they want their buddies to be released from prison. Looks like Phoenix has some sort of arrogant personality, because even in this situation, the girl triggers the kidnappers that their friends won't be released. No matter what, someone silences her before she ends up getting someone killed, and lucky for her. These people were instructed not to kill the holy swordsman, as they were kept to be sacrificed for the goddess. That actually rings a bell in MC's head as the boy teleports, without the bad guys noticing, whereas the princess is forced to sail the ship to the capital as it runs only by her command. But before they would start their journey, the princess reveals that they are about to sail directly into a void reef. Even though it scares everyone, Shaq instructs them to crash the ship into the reef because she finds it a perfect offering for the goddess if the holy swordsman gets tainted by a miasma of nothingness. Besides, she doesn't give a damn about basest plan, and as the leader tries to stop her, Shaq burns the crap out of that guy as they're at it. The princess's pet, the royal family's carbuncle, walks towards Regina and tells her about the princess being in danger. So as the ship breaks the ropes and starts to sail away, Regina immediately jumps towards the staircase, though we're not sure if she made it or not. MC, on the other hand, gets lost in the cruise, but luckily he bumps into Regina and Carbuncle there. The story takes an interesting plot, because Regina seems pretty worried as she reveals that her little sister is in trouble. Hi, this is my recap for the anime, The Demon Sword Master of Excalibur Academy Episode 8. If you like my recaps, please consider subscribing. On a special night, a strange red star shone in the sky, so they called it the Scarlet Calamity, and that same night the son of the royal family was born, and due to strange rules of the past, the king agreed to get rid of the baby, since it was a tradition. A very rare one in which the fourth royal child will never see the light of day, since in the past in Japan, the number 4 meant synonymous with bad luck. But when Prince Crystalia found out about this, he simply couldn't accept it. So at night he intercepted the year where the baby was being taken for execution, since Prince Crystalia could not allow something so horrible. So he took him home with his wife who had recently given birth, so that the baby ended up being her sister, and as she grew up, we can see how all this time, Regina was under the radar being Risel's maid. Although in front of Leonis, Reina revealed her full name being Reina Rey, Ortiz, sister of the 4th Imperial Princess. So this was the reason why she did not accompany them to the party, since in the library she promised to go. But when she was at the port and saw her sister from afar, she simply could not get close. So Leonis quickly understood her, although he wondered about the spirit she had in her. But Regina told her that the royal family has the power of spirits and that the ship they are on is controlled by one of those, and when she notices that they are still moving, they only assume that they forced the princess to command the ship. But Lyons, without wasting time, tells her about the current situation where the princess was kidnapped. Everyone was taken hostage by the dim humans, but the advantage is that he found her, and now they will be able to rescue the princess. Together, they release the spirit of the princess, which goes straight towards her. But in the great hall where all the guests were taken hostage, where Fenris asked where they are taking them. But Elsa did not feel like talking. Although Wolf took the opportunity to annoy her by asking her to try to escape with her sacred weapon, since it would be enchanted to defeat her and without being heard. The Inn tells her that one of her sacred swords is hidden in the chandelier, and she was able to analyze that they have too many explosives, but the one who controls the mecha is Jack. So ending the first one would be a great advantage, and having the plan in mind, the first step would be to free himself, so Risel could find himself with a metal awl, which would be quite useful since, despite not being able to use his spiritual weapon, he could use his vampire blood to defend himself, returning to Regina and Leonis. When they arrive at the control center, they do not meet anyone, but they do encounter artificial spirits which blocked all types of signals, not to mention that they destroyed part of the communicator. So it would be difficult to change the course of the ship without considering that Regina was able to enter the ship since a loud scream was heard. So if I heard it again, they could surely find the princess, but Leonis wanted me to use telepathy using the princess's spirit called Carbuncle, after all being royalty. I could use it, although Regina seemed to have her doubts, since he had never contacted her in that way, and she was very nervous. Although Leonis assured her that this is not the time to be nervous, since such words could hurt her, encouraged Reina, who, without any other options, used Carbuncle to try to communicate with the princess, who responded immediately, asking who was talking to her, and due to the fear of the moment, Regina lied that she was a spiritualist also, as not to be recognized. But she still took advantage of the moment to ask where they were taking her, and the princess was touched to the airship. So Reina promised her that they would go and save her immediately. But Rey asked that they forget her and prioritize everyone on the ship, since they are sailing directly towards a great stampede of voids, which they confirm when they see the marine radar. So the main thing would be to stop that ship, change its course, save the people, Reins, and rescue the Princess King. But there was no time, since the radar warned them how close they were to the stampede. So Leonis asked for information about the princess and where she was going, since there were only 2 Leonis, he would take on the task of saving to the princess, while Reina would try to divert the ship. And although it was risky, Leonis broke the window to leave, ensuring that they will be fine, and it is the only possible way. So do not fear for him, since he will be in charge of bringing Rey back. Although returning with the Rizel reins, and finally, they prepare to save everyone by attacking the elf first, but in those moments Fenris did not seem to want to shut up. So Wolf would quickly get tired, although Elsa forbade him from harming him, since they need them alive. Although without being seen, Sakuya, she freed herself, saying that she was simply hungry, so they could ignore her. Although Wolf did not like this, since they were teasing him. Although he stopped her, since Sakuya had the sword of Orin, quickly impressing Wolf, since he recognizes that his clan is famous, since they usually face Boyd only with their katanas. Although Fenrir is angry, so she asked not to be ignored. But before being cut, she would manage to dodge his attack, and then take his arm and stop having it, and no matter what happens, Wolf ordered to explode the ship. But before Jack could do anything, the spiritual weapon of the end managed to cut his wand, not to mention that Sakuya went straight towards Elsa, who couldn't stand the blow with the katana, and to make sure she didn't have any problems, Fenris summoned her ice wolves to that they freeze the elder hobo, and Rizel was not far behind, going straight to stop the elf in case he tried to do anything, and although Fenrir was happy that everything went well, Rizel scolded her, since it could be very dangerous, and although they recovered their phones for some reason, for a strange reason, there was no signal, and when they looked out the window, they found Boyds, who quickly got on the boat, trying to force their way into the room where they were stopped by the girls. Although they did not stop arriving, so the End was in charge of guiding the boys' civilians, while Riselia was contacted by Leonis, although she did not know how he got into her mind. But the young man revealed to her that his cat-shaped accessory is also a communicator, so that she can make sure not to lose it. Although at that time he asked her to help Regina, who had entered the ship and would be in charge of piloting the ship. Although she needed someone to protect her since there were too many Boyds loose, not to mention that he was close to Ray, who, at that time, was being taken to a helicopter and wanted an explanation of where she was taken. But Sharn simply said that there are people interested in her spiritual power and she will take her to use her at will. In those same moments, we see Rena protecting herself from the Boyds, so she could not control the ship, and even more so when she saw that there were so many. But thanks to Rizel and that Myron's help, I would be more than calm, even so in the room. The other girls would do everything possible to kill all the boy, which, once defeated, a great special boy would appear, which the End would call Brain Eater. This time was the same as the others, since the Fenris wolves had no effect on her. But in the end she intended to take care of the boss, asking that they finish off the rest. Although Sakuya did not agree, asking that they let her take charge, and that they protect the civilians, so the girls accepted her request, leaving Sakuya versus the Brain Eater. She quickly summoned her demonic sword called Yamak Diori. In those moments, Raina was heading towards the heart of the ship, although there were still plenty of Boyds, so Rizel covered her back, leaving her way clear to try to regain control of the ship, managing to establish a successful connection where he could give new instructions to the ship, and along with maximum speed, he would soon flee from the Boyds. But for his bad luck, the princess was about to be kidnapped by helicopter, but we see that Sharn simply used Cheetah, since he let the Boyds devour him. But within this king, he noticed that the ship could be recovered. Everyone on it will be saved except her, or maybe not, since, when trying to take off the helicopter, Sharn did not take into account that it had been tied up by a young boy who assured him that he would not get his way. Even so, inside the room, the situation was critical, since the girls' weapons practically had no more ammunition. But as if it were magic, the boys broke into pieces, although it was actually Sherry who cut off the monster's hands, since she had orders from her master and wanted to make him happy, no matter what the cost. When we saw Sakuya again, we found that she defeated the boss boy, but to our bad luck we couldn't see the power of his cursed sword, which made it very clear that he is on another level on the outskirts. Leonis challenged Sharn, although she wanted to know his name first, so the boy revealed him to be the Demon King. Although she did not like this, since she believed him an enlarged brat, but when he saw that he dodged his spell, he was left speechless. Even so, Leonis recognized that she used magic, or well, the one he invented. So clearly, it would not work on him, and once he caught his enemy, he asked her objectives, and with no more options, Schnack revealed that he came to disappear the sacred swords and make a demonic sword which he planned to give to the goddess. Yet Leonis could not believe that a goddess still exists in this world, asking who she was when Sharn was about to reveal her name. A sword pierced his chest, a sword which Leonis could recognize as this being the weapon of the Demon King, the very demonic sword. But he still did not understand what it was doing there. But when he saw that it transformed into a great monster and attracted voids, he could understand that even a sword. She succumbed to the voids of the present, so she would have no choice but to eliminate her. Even if she attacked the boy, he did not receive even the slightest damage. After all, it was a sword given to the hero by a god. At that moment we see that the boy was so powerful that he could even teleport. But it was not time to be impressed, since the other boys were going for the princess, who had fainted from fear. but when defending her he was exposed to the attack. But he was also able to teleport. At the same time, Regina was finishing a contract where she could have full access to the ship's weapons, being successful and pointing towards the sword, which would simply defend itself without receiving any damage. Although the other boys were destroyed in an instant, not to mention that Regina also had access to the missiles, so the attack towards the ship begins. Enemy, although in one of those missiles, a special weapon would come out, Rizel being the weapon. Although in reality it came out of the missile since it was faster than walking, but at that moment the sword will attract more boy, so the plan was clear. Rizel would protect him, while Lions, he invoked a great spell, or even better a sword called D-Slave, which had the ability to disintegrate objects when used by Lions against the boss boy. We can see its great power, which, without problems, finished off both the boy and his ashes. So they were able to return to land, and when they saved the princess, she would recognize them for having saved her. But Rizel would confess that in reality they did not do it. So Ray asked to meet her savior, and the girls lamented since that could not be possible, but they gave her their message, which said that they hoped she would get better and hoped to meet her at another time, a message that made the princess happy, although in reality, Leonis had used a lot of power, so he was exhausted. But he did not appear in her room as he prepared something delicious for her to eat, without saying that he gave him a kiss of thanks, although he asked that it be a secret between the two of them. Although returning to the island of the demihumans, they were being invaded by the Imperial army since they had conspired against their princess, so the rest of the demihumans planned to escape. Although it was already too late since the royal guard was about to arrest them, surrounding them and asking them, let them drop their weapons, in addition to warning them that they are facing users with sacred swords, so the hand-to-hand fight does not even make sense. Yet a strange spell was activated in front of them where it would petrify the real soldiers. So we quickly see the culprit, although the demihumans did not seem to know him. But in reality it was Leonis who ordered them to kneel before his presence and introduced himself before them as Spad Dis, the demon king himself, who is the legitimate ruler of this world. So he offered them to be his subordinates, of course, unless that they do not want to be eliminated by humans, which the demihumans accepted as they had no other options. So Leonis created a dungeon with his magic, which is not visible to humans, so they could hide for the moment while they sharpened their fangs. Although at that moment, a strange sound came from the demon king being his cell phone, and when answering the call, we heard Rizel calling him Leo, and that she is very worried about him, to which the demon king simply plays dumb and retreats into the shadows, leaving the demihumans speechless. Even so, we see at that moment Rizel, who was watching the crows through his window, and upon seeing the animals, he remembered that Leonis told him that they belonged to the kingdom of the night, so they gather under the nearest vampire, all to increase their power. But Rizel, when she entered Leonis' room, she found a stranger, so she rubbed her eyes. So she took it as a simple illusion, but she was still worried about Leonis, since he was not answering her calls, so she decided to go, take a bath, and then go to look for him. Although at that moment, Leonis appears in his room using the skill between the shadows, so he went directly with Rizel, who for his bad luck, or good luck, was with little clothing. So they both ended up being embarrassed, and even more so when Relina entered in badly. He understood the situation, but before saying a word, they asked him to shut up and then enjoy some food together. But Rizel no longer liked that Leo eats so few vegetables, since he could get sick. Although the boy promised to eat them later, but deep down, he felt strange, since it was strange for him that others cared so much about his health. But the crows kept bothering his home, which Raina realized and thought that they could be a big problem. So it wouldn't hurt to take a few shots, although Riselia, he tried to calm her down, since he felt that the crows were quite cute and did not deserve that ending. Although Regina said that there are rumors of that house where, in the past, it was inhabited by ghosts, so they should get rid of the crows. In addition, there are even more recent rumors of a ghostly black dog and a maid who appears in the house at night, so Rizel remembered what he saw recently, claiming that he saw her in Leonis' room and that she had short black hair, which made Leonis almost choking. Since he knows that they are talking about Sherry, and he simply said that it is impossible for it to be true, although deep down, He felt a little angry since his maid was being very careless, although at that moment, Rizel wanted to know why he was away from home for so long, to which Leonis had to lie, saying that he practiced new secret techniques since he wanted to improve for Riselia due to all the effort she makes for him, which almost made the young woman blush. While Raina assured that Fenris would be a strong opponent since they will soon have to fight against her, but she was practicing a great strategy last night which motivated Rizel. After all, it was her first exercise with her holy sword. She wanted to give her best, so we went directly to that exercise where she and Leonis try to pass stopping the trap, arrows and recovering the first flag. So they had quickly won the first team by eliminating one of the 5 flags where Teresa and the children from the restaurant cheered her on from afar. And she was also observed by the higher-ups, who wanted to see the potential of the new students. Where we see that the Inn formed a group with Regina to protect his flag, and thanks to the way to the end, he was able to locate the enemies, and Reina, having the information, could shoot without risking much. But not everything would be simple since it was already she faced Fenris's Ice Wolves. Although she was unsuccessful, she had to flee, a strategy that the higher-ups applauded, since, if an enemy is very powerful, it is best to drive it away in a group, but to Riselia's carelessness, one of the wolves would manage to reach her, reaching her, biting her leg. So she quickly froze, leaving a mocking Fenris before her, who said he knew that she would go for his flag. Although Rizel asked her to hold back with her wolves since her bites were too painful, but Fenrir made sure that she is only using 1/10 of her power. Yet Rizel did not understand why she was defending, since the flags do not usually defend themselves. Rather, they go straight for the others, to which the blonde simply said that she was doing it, since she knew that she would come and she wanted to fix it. Things with her. Although Rizel thanked her since thanks to her bad movement, Sakuya will be able to go for the other flags, but Fenris had everything covered since they had managed to make her appear right in front of them because of her ice wolves, which took her even Fenris, who was happy that they only have to worry about Raina, and, in the end, such a strategy impressed Leonis, who, despite knowing that he has a bad character, he did not deny his great intelligence. Yet Fenris was obsessed with fighting, so she challenged Rizel, acting as sacred weapon with powerful ice fists. So Rizel quickly asked Leo to take care of Fenris's friend. He did not hesitate to attack his enemy, but Rizel continued to insist that he had to protect his main flag, although this did not matter to him, the blonde, who only wanted revenge. So Riselia accepted the challenge, although after receiving a push. She knew that it would not be easy, and even less so when her friend threw 2 ice wolves towards her extremities to leave her without any movement while Leo dodged the arrows of her. The enemy took the opportunity to use his power of shadows to immobilize and suffocate his enemy, who was quickly considered eliminated by the official system, but Rizel at that moment knew that he could not surrender as you enter. He revealed that he always admired Fenris and his power of ice. But at that moment he decided to end the battle by hitting and destroying the sacred weapon of the blonde, whom the system quickly decided to eliminate. But this made Leonis happy, who could see his right hand, which had become extremely powerful. Something that surprised the great commanders. Even the old man watched the queen's equipment, since without having experience in the tournament, they ended up being the winners. But in a change of scenes we see how our lucky Leonis is being bathed by the girls, because he is not yet 10 years old, and as a rule of thumb, the school must be taken care of by a tutor until that age. So Rizel was the closest thing to a tutor. So there were no problems, although Regina took the opportunity to annoy Sakuya by insinuating that she was growing well, and since she was passing through, she also asked Leonis. Let him watch, but he was embarrassed and said he wouldn't do it. And while the girls were talking about how well their leader Sakuya fought, he apologized for letting himself be fooled. Although the inn said that it didn't matter since it was their first fight, so they made a promise where everyone they joined their hands. Although Leonis was missing, who approached them as best, he could promise that they would improve together. At that moment we were shown a sword which a guy admitted that Sharn gave his best attempt, but it was not the right one for the mission. But that mysterious guy was the very Lord of the Void Nefs, who fed a luminous rock, where Nefs assured that his goddess was there who would soon wake up. But at the same time we see a mysterious kingdom which seemed to have been hidden, but returning with the young people, they were recruited by Grey. since their satellites observed a strange city. Although Rizel seemed to recognize it since it was the third garden of the assault, but to his surprise, it appeared out of nowhere. So it is very likely that the voids are responsible, not to mention that the emergency alarm was activated more than once. So it is likely that there are still some survivors in the city, but Dejus believes it is due to a machine error. But to be sure, he asked the boys to explore it, since it is likely that they will find some survivors. This being their mission permission to eliminate any boy, but if they encounter a swarm, they have the order to retreat. Even so, the Ind wanted to know why they were given that mission, but the instructor simply said that it was the director's decision. Even so, the Ind said that Riselia was a survivor of the third garden, so he did not want her to go this to avoid old traumas, but Rizel did not want to evade his duty, so he did not deny going. But he did ask that Leonis not go due to his young age. Still, Leonis asked him to trust him, since he is also part of his platoon, which Rizel already ended up accepting, promising that he would take care of him no matter what. So, with the mission accepted, a large helicopter would pick them up. Even so, Leonis had many doubts since in that ancient city had activated a mark of the Sacred Order, something that he discussed with his subordinates. But Blas did not believe it was possible since it had not been activated for 1,000 years. So his personal mission would be to find the person responsible for activating the mark, and while Blas was left in charge to take care of the city, Sherry was assigned to go with Leonis. Although changing the subject, Leonis wanted to know where Blas was going so elegant, but he responded that it was a gift from a samurai, to which the protagonist knew that it was from Sakuya. Now they quickly left for their mission, where, upon seeing the light of the sun, the Ind recommended them to sleep a little, since the trip would be long, and Raina offered her legs to sleep to Leonis, who would be arrested by Rizel since she was jealous and assured that he should use his legs now that she was his guardian. But Queen forcibly put him to bed since she would take the opportunity to clean the ears of the young man who, with no other option, had to fall asleep, remembering the past with his queen, Riselia, where he cleaned himself his bones, ensuring that it is dangerous not to do so, but she continued talking about her short time since she would soon leave the afterlife. Even so, she asked him not to forget her since 1,000 years in the future. She would reincarnate, something that the Demon King did not understand, and that after that time he would never stop searching for her, that she will not stop doing it either. So the Demon King swore to do it, but Riselia, not only did she want that promise, since she also wanted him to love her, she does become another when reincarnated. Although Leonis woke up at that moment, seeing Riselia's face without knowing where he was there. But Regina told him that he fell asleep, and they almost reached their destination, which was the third garden, and without any further problems they were able to land there. But at first glance it didn't seem like anyone was living in that place. But they still had a mission, so that Rizel and Leonis would go to the center field, while the others would be in charge of finding the rescue signal. But once they left, Leone contacted Sherry since he needed her to take care of his friends. But halfway there, Raina recognized a place where she used to be. A cafeteria where he always went with his family, but at that moment lightning caused a large pole to fall on Rizel, this enormous monster being the cause of everything. But at the same time, from the heights they show us a little of the past about what happened minutes before our protagonists arrive, where someone appears as the Terminator, this being an elf girl called Ayr who does not know where she is. But she can recognize that it is her world, although when he touches the ground, he knows that 1,000 years have already passed, and perhaps that is why there are no trees, grass, or good air in the environment. But although there were no signs of life, there were some beautiful clothes, so he proceeded to try them on while he thought about what direction to take next. She didn't expect that horrendous world at all, but in the distance she begins to see a strange ship, so she calls it a flying saucer. Although someone behind her reveals that it is actually a helicopter and introduces herself as Nefs, who is the master of the void and the hero of the elves, was not expected to be in a place like that. Yet this does not seem to matter to Yor, since he believes that he is responsible for having destroyed his entire planet and quickly threatens him, although Nef simply changed his topic, since she wanted to know why they sent her, hoping that it was not because of the destruction of the goddess's container, to which the elven heroine immediately asked if he was asking that, since he was the caretaker of the container. Although, when Nefs did not want to answer his question, he quickly launched himself towards him, but to his surprise, he ended up failing since the Lord of the Void moved too fast, and to his surprise, a strange exterminating angel appeared behind him with bad intentions. But here comes the small glimpse into the past, and we return to the present where this same exterminating angel was trying to kill Rizel, who was trapped with a large pole, and as the angel was about to kill her, Leonis used his shadow magic to get her to safety as quickly as possible, preventing her friend from falling in battle. But this would leave him alone against the monster who used enormous magical power, but was no match for the defensive Leonis, who did not hesitate to defend himself by making his enemy retreat minimally. But even so, Leo knew that his protection could nullify the magic by which was a dangerous boy to face. But still, this did not intimidate our young prodigy, who assured the angel that he is about to see what true great magic is. But from a distance his companions saw him, who began to wonder about Leonis and Rizel, so they went straight to the battlefield in case they needed any type of reinforcement. But in reality, Leonis was facing the boy alone, who did not stop attacking him, but Leonis would not be left behind, invoking his gravitational power on him, managing to make him fall to the ground, but the monster being able to cancel the magic would not fall so easily. So the boy tried again, but this time with even more magical power, since it will not allow a simple void to compare with it. And when we see that the angel began to suffer, Leonis invoked a great exterminator ray, which without much trouble finished off his enemy. So Leonis ran towards his companion, whom he had protected with complete success, but even so, when he met with her, he could see that she was not well at all. When Rizel began to having trouble getting up, but still asked her to be careful, since she had just suffered a big wound, and even though she is the vampire queen, her body is mortal. So it will take time for her to recover, which she understood immediately. But she still apologized already, which was not at all useful in combat. But Leonis did not care about this and planned to help Rizel by hiding her power. Since with her in poor condition, it would be best to avoid any unnecessary fight, a fight that apparently would be immediately when she could see some strange specters which were approaching them. But before Leo did anything, Rizel asked him to calm down for a second, as he could recognize their shields being those of the royal family, where one of these being the ancient crystal knight named William. Richmond saluted to Rizel, who remembered her face since when she was little he worked for her father, so William was happy to know that she is fine, stating that she is now a spirit, and they have come to them to talk, which Leo was not worried about, since he recognizes that in combat zones, where souls with strong attachments to a purpose usually end up as wandering spirits since 1,000 years ago. In the past, many ghosts of his great army used to appear. William ended up revealing that he sent him the message of help, and since he no longer they are human, it was likely that no one would come for them, but rejoicing at their good luck, he took the opportunity to warn the young people that, if they continue at this pace, the tragedy that happened 6 years ago in the past, which killed everyone on the ship, would happen again at any time. Moments since boys' stampedes were preparing to attack the 7th garden, this because a new Lord of the Void has appeared in that world. But Leonis quickly knew that perhaps they are lying, since in the past, when the Lord of the Void should have appeared, he never appeared, so it does not make sense that the prophecies come true 1,000 years in the future. But still, that does not explain how simple humans know about the existence of such a being. But William continued his talk, where he assured him that the Lord of the Void had joined the magical circuit of the city, so he is the cause of it, moving at that precise moment. So Rizel, very worried, knew that she had to report this immediately since her home is in danger, but Leo did not know what to do since the people might call them crazy if they say they talked to some spirits, so he tried to calm Rizel, who, despite being hurt, wanted to warn everyone, but Leo already knew that first, he had to take him to a quiet place, which William quickly offered. There was no problem with them going to the castle. Besides, they had already called a car, but it seemed strange to Rizel that a ghost could drive a car. Although Leo reminded him that it is likely that this car has technology which must have something of magic, so it wouldn't be too crazy if they could drive them. Although Leonis wanted to go much faster, so he summoned his faithful coursers, which were skeletons of horses, who would pull the car so that Riselia could get there as quickly as possible to rest. But at the same time, for a while, her friends were looking for the boys, since they hadn't seen them in a long time. When Sakuya stopped them, the girls were happy that there was a survivor, but when they saw her armed and eager to fight, Sakuya asked to be allowed to fight invoking her sacred sword, which Ayer did not know, so she assumed that they were friends of the Lord of the Void. Although the girls quickly explained to her that they do not know what they are talking about, which ended up being Enforcer, since she felt that they were treating her like a fool. So she went straight to the combat where Seiken already. He knew how to respond in the same way, even though he was superior by almost cutting his neck, but Sakuya stopped, since he knew that it was not fair to fight against someone who is injured, which we see is true when the heroine's back turned red. But in turn Nefs worshipped his beautiful queen, who would soon wake up. As long as he continues to give her power, but returning to Rizel she little by little felt better but still had a strong need to taste some of Leonis's blood which she had no problem with to give him a little. But when Rizel pounced on him, she began to suck the blood of the young man more than necessary. Even though he knew that Rizel was going too far, he had no problem letting her eat. But when his transmitter rang, he wanted the end to know if they were okay. He quickly stopped eating to inform his friends that they were okay, but it may take some time since they will explore an area. Maybe the king of the Boyds is living in that city, something that he couldn't understand at the end. Saris admitted that it is likely that the interference of the entire magical circuit of the ship is caused by King Boy. So they will look for evidence that it is true they could end the Voids from the root, but in the end he asked him for some time, since there was a wounded survivor and they had to heal him, which the boys could not understand. So they agreed to get together when they finished exploring and their friends to heal. The survivor by hanging Rizel wanted to continue where she left off, since she was still very hungry, but Leonis stopped her since he had a gift for her. This being a large red dress, which, in reality Leo explained to her that it is the highest equipment that is given to a skilled swordsman. In addition to the fact that her dress converts the magic of the vampire queen into explosive physical strength, but the disadvantage is that it consumes a lot of magic which was also stored in the user's body. But all this made Rizel happy, since he knew that in reality he gave her weapons because he wants to take care of her, but Leonis quickly became embarrassed, assuring that it is a gift that is always given. He also gave her some cute skeleton pendants, which Rizel really liked, but Leo had to stop, since he didn't tolerate compliments well. At that moment, his friends were trying to heal Ayura's body, although the end never ceased to surprise him since even wounded. She was able to confront Sakuya, who quickly appeared with clothes similar to what she had to introduce herself as Sakuya. So the elf, without any choice, introduced herself as Ayer, but Queen was more interested in knowing why she tried to attack them recently. Although the young woman elf claimed that the enemy of the world, the same one that controls the monsters, had recently attacked her, so she believed they were her friends at that time. The end searched for her name in the database, but there was no year in the third garden. What the end asked? Who was? Although the elf returned the question, so the end revealed to her that they are the seventh garden and they came to investigate that city, which was destroyed 6 years ago. So you learned that the prophecy was real. And humans rule the world. When Ayer ate her stomach revealed her hunger, so a kind Sakuya did not hesitate to share some of her food. While Ayer ate, Sherry watched from the shadows, recognizing the elf as she was a disciple of the sixth hero Shadaloo. Even so, Sherry did not understand what someone from 1,000 years ago in the past was doing in the present. Another angel informed Nefs that an angel had been exterminated, but he still did not give it importance, since he had work to do in turn. When Rizel returned to his home, he couldn't help but feel sad, and when they entered the castle, Leo couldn't help but sit on a chair remembering his old throne, and in order not to lose the habit, Leonis took out a bone to start cleaning it, remembering the days he cleaned his own, while Riselia continued, exploring her old home, and couldn't help but shed some tears when she went to her father's room, since there was a book that he always read to her. Even so, the spirits used some of their power to renew the entire room, since they wanted Riselia. Remember the beautiful moments with your father when he read about old stories such as the Demon King, who only left the earth in darkness, but unfortunately for him he did not believe in the end of the story, since someone so powerful could not end that way. But a voice quickly interrupts Rizel, who, upon seeing Nef, is happy and asks him if he is a survivor, but he simply becomes depressed since they confused him with a dirty human, something that would not go unnoticed. So the human he had just met would soon be silenced to the bone. But when Leo heard his friend scream, he ran towards Rizel, who simply didn't seem to react, and a great flame would soon consume her if she didn't wake up. Hi, this is my recap for the anime The Demon Sword Master of Excalibur Academy Episode 11. If you like my recaps, please consider subscribing. Even so, in that fraction of a moment, Rizel already began to remember the past, where she was just a child and faced her father, since she did not want to hide and wanted to go straight to battle. Even so, her father promised her that when she is even older, she will be able to do so. But at the moment it is his and his family's duty to protect the kingdom, and although he noticed his daughter's sadness, he wanted to make her feel better by telling her about his story about the Demon King that he read so much to her in the past, where he will reveal that his book may be something real, and at some point in the story it returns to attack them all, whether in the form of a demon or voids. So perhaps they are in that same story. But when Rizel was able to regain consciousness and wake up, he only observed 3 mysterious beings of the which we don't know anything about. But Nefs on the other side was wondering if maybe he got out of hand, since he had used the magic of the Third Emperor, which was even useful to quickly eliminate titans. But when the smoke disappeared and behind it, there were 3 specters. Altico wondered where such aberrations came from. But Riselia no longer seemed to be scared, and one of them congratulated her for surviving such an attack. Although the second specter says that it could have been better since she ended up fainting for a few seconds, but the third specter assured her that she has nothing to fear since they would protect her. Even so, Nifa was surprised since she thought she was facing a simple human, but seeing her control of the undead, she decided to get serious and use her fire magic, which could not be stopped with easily. But when Leonis appeared, he was able to dodge it very easily and even redirected it towards Nefs, who was completely burned. But Leonis, seeing it well, thinks he went a bit too far and regrets it, since he wanted to ask him a couple of questions. Even so, Rizel did not understand anything and asked for the 3 specters in front of him. So Leo explained to him that the amulet he gave him was actually the home of those 3 skeletons, which were very polite, presenting themselves as Alas, the swordsman of Hades, the master of Hell, and Fiskar, the sorcerer of Hell, underworld, which together made up the glorious lords, who quickly began to fight, since each one believed that he was better than the other, or stronger and more necessary than the other. But the protagonists saw him from a distance, where Rizel joked that they got along well. Leonis, before he scolded them, saw that it was normal to return his spell. He saw that Nef seemed to have received no damage, while he congratulated him, since a normal human upon returning, his spell would have turned into ashes instantly. But Leonis simply stood open-mouthed that it was impossible to survive such an attack. Yet Nefs asked him why that face. After all, an attack is weak, as that would never have an effect on someone like him, while he cast another fire spell which Leonis decided to stop, which he managed to do with. It is extremely easy, to the point of freezing the floor where Nephis was, while he was wondering how this is possible. But Leonis would not allow any more disrespect. So he began to ask questions like, what is he doing in that place? But when he felt a strong tremor that shook everything, the ship Nefs began to laugh, since his plan would soon flourish, telling that the Saint Tiars had just fulfilled her sacrifice. But Leonis could not recognize that name. So he asked him what he was referring to, which Nefs had no problem, saying that the saint is a container of the goddess who has just been resurrected. Thanks to him, while a portal appeared behind Nefs, who said that his duty had just ended in that world, and while he was escaping, Leonis told him that it was useless to fight. But the young man would not let him. He escaped by sending his shadow hands after him, but Nefs simply undid them, finishing his sentence with that it is impossible to escape the fate of the goddess and her destruction, as she calmly disappeared. Yet Rizel wanted to know who he was or what goddess he was referring to. But the young man also did not have much information apart from a slight memory from 1,000 years ago in the past, where he remembers that he saw her, but for a very short time, calling her Lefay's Razor, who is basically the demon god of the underworld, and together with the god of revenge, they have been on the powerful stairs of the gods called Hashima many times. But Leo suspects that perhaps the goddess Nefs refers to as perhaps Riselia, since her prophecy would be after 1,000 years, but after feeling another earthquake and seeing the symbol of the apostles in the sky, which is a sign that humanity was faithful to the gods, Leo begins to have a bad feeling. So he recommends that Millis escape somewhere immediately, which Leo hears. But while they were escaping, Rizel sees a strange being which begins to emerge. But William appears before them, who informs that this void is the one they warned would soon be released. So as it was too late, they begged the princess to escape, since, as we can see, this will not happen. He was weak, nor was he alone to defend himself. Although upon seeing him, he knew that it was actually in the sanctuary of the apostles, and the giant boy in front of them was actually one of the great of 6 heroes, being Eris resurrected, and in the distance Reina could see to the big boy. So he immediately reported the large amount, although this made him immediately call Rizel, who seemed not to answer, and Sakuya at that moment gave some food to Ayur, since she had to leave immediately. So without wasting any time, they sent a missile from their control center to the sky to send a distress signal, since a new and powerful void had appeared, bringing with it a huge amount of voids. But Rizel, I don't know what he would do with his arms crossed. She activated her holy weapon to begin fighting against the entire wave of voices, and although her friends could not do the same since they had orders to stay safe, if they found any void, the Inn knew that it would be impossible to follow those rules. Since the number of enemies, it's ridiculous, so they planned how to save their friends and escape together. But when the monsters appeared, they had to fight immediately, which Ayur could see with her own eyes, to simply apologize for failing, since the goddess had been resurrected and there was nothing to do. But at that moment Rizel continued fighting, and although he could hear these monsters recovering in a second, even the glorious lords, despite each of their attacks, could not avoid this ridiculous regeneration. So they wondered what to do. But such a problem was not only for them, since both Reina and Sakuya could not do any Rasgula to them, so the End had to scan them. But when Leonis was fighting, he noticed that if he attacked him directly to the head, they would never regenerate again. So he reported it immediately, but the End, she was not far behind, since she was able to tell the same thing to her companions who attacked that area directly. But Leonis remembered that the power of such a goddess was to revive. So this is the main reason why those voids have something of the same that she was. But with this secret revealed, the voids began to be almost ineffective, at least for our group of brave protagonists. Even so, the lions could not stop seeing Daenerys, since no matter what happens, they will have to fight her. But when one of the spheres that the Inn sent to explore found vehicles to escape, the girls went straight towards them, and although Ayur did not seem to be fully recovered, she still went with her new friends in turn. The lords could not believe that they have so many enemies to defeat, but then that's what war is about. So they were right to face their enemies, which Rizel and Leo did not stop facing. And when Leo saw Daenerys again, he promised that he would not let the whole world be destroyed a second time. So he pointed his staff at him to invoke a spell called Alsum, which was the representation of destruction in person. Something that the closer he got to Daenerys, the more we could see how she was burned by the great power. But despite everything, it quickly began to regenerate as if nothing had happened to her, something that Leo did not like very much. After all, Alsum was a level 10 spell, but when Daenerys began to recite a strong spell, Rizel noticed that both Lord Das and Leone approached to protect her. Eris didn't seem to be playing by invoking a great shower of crimson meteorites towards his enemies, and from the distance Ayur was able to recognize that great spell, which was level 11, and both the girls in the distance were wondering what was happening, but they didn't have time to distractions, since they had to hack the ship to be able to use them. And when the spell stopped, we see that nothing happened to the protagonists, but I knew that they should end this immediately. So Leonis makes sure that if she protected him, she could end Daenerys to a single blow, and the Lord Das would not be left behind, promising to give their lives for their lord, and without any other options. Rizel used some of his blood to use all the power of the Vampire Queen, and, together with the Lord Das, he was able to put an end to many voids, giving him a great advantage to Leonis, who did not hesitate to jump towards danger to position himself in front of the enemy, who was once a great hero but in the present fell into nothingness and would have to be destroyed with his own hands. So with his dark sword called Din Slave proposed to cut the great boy in two. But before he could use Din Slave, he quickly stopped, and the boy began to speak, asking if they want to use his sword to destroy it. But to Leonis' surprise, it was Riselia's voice that sounded. But when he saw the big boy again, he was convinced that it was impossible. So he finished launching the attack, which then transformed into swords which they shot at everyone in the area, damaging both the Voids and Rizel and Leonis himself, which was not critically injured and then collapsed after being crossed. And as if the Void was not enough, he planned to once again invoke a grade 11 spell, but as Rizel knew what could happen, his eyes quickly transformed her, invoking the suit that Leo gave her. He gave a gift, and then confronted Eris with his sword, who, to everyone's surprise, would end up injured by his attack, to which the lords would not be left behind, giving Rizel some time so that he could save his master. But when Rizel came down, he noticed that Leo he didn't seem to react, although inside he remembered this scene, which was similar 1,000 years ago in the past, where he was the supreme demon, king, and together with Riselia. He swore that he would find her no matter what happens to him or how much he has to search, since the demon king's word is supreme, and when Leo could say a few words, he only asked Rizel to flee the place, but she could only hug him. Although Leo in his last moments seemed to regret having made a kind girl become a swordsman and a vampire queen because of him, but returning with his memory of the past, where Riselia wanted one last promise, which was that if she became something else in the future, he must eliminate her with his sword. But at that moment Rizel seemed to be sandalwood. But still, little by little, Leo thought that he deserved to go to the afterlife. After all, his life without Riselia made no sense, remembering how, in the past, he told him that he couldn't promise that. Even so, Rizel asked him to follow his sword, since it is always there, and in the present, Rizel was able to little by little bring back to life a Leonis who finally decided that he would live for his memories with his beloved Riselia. But to preserve all his memories, Leo knows that he must get up and, together with his sword, Din Slave, finish off the false goddess Eris. Although luckily he was not alone in this, since he had the help of Riselia, who was very concerned about the wound of his young companion. Although Leonis swore that he was fine despite having a large wound on his chest, but when the young man noticed it, he could see that he was no longer bleeding as much. This was because his vampire friend managed to control his blood and force it to return to his body. But this continued to worry his subordinates, who wanted him to take a rest. Although the young man simply said he was fine again, and with a piece of Rizel dress, which she herself gave him, we see that when he placed it on his chest, that the wound ended up closing completely, but they still couldn't relax since they had a void goddess to eliminate, which Leo proposed to put an end to this once and for all. Of course, it would be easier with her battle partner, who did not hesitate to get up and invoke his crimson sword, which he would fight, would be the Din Slave part of Leo, who, upon noticing that his sword shone less intensely, knew that he had lost a large amount of his power, but still had his reserve, which clearly would not be enough to finish off the goddess, either Eris. Although we quickly see how William does not hesitate to offer all his help in combat, and although they were alone spirits trapped in this world, they really wanted to avenge their land and not only them. Since, in an instant, we see how a lot of souls which are from the fallen of that land wanted to provide their service for the combat, so upon hearing William, again begged the protagonist with all his strength to allow them to fight at his side. He had no choice but to leave them. Although for that, they are really helpful, Leo decided to invoke an energy sphere which curiously used souls as a source of energy. So since there were so many of them, they could be a good reserve of power for combat, and, although William had no problem going to Leo, wanted to give him something more at the level of such knights. Also invoking their soldiers from the ancient army, which were skeletons with ancient armor, but although William did not understand anything, we see how the skeletons by simple contact with their souls were able to fuse for combat so that now they would truly be of help to win, which Rizel would have the honor of guiding his fallen people, as well as having the job of protecting Leo, who would take some time to gather the energy of all the souls and some of his own in his demonic sword. So when he saw the great demon again, Riselia did not hesitate to accept the mission in front of him, promising that he would protect him. So, in addition to that, he used some of his blood to turn it into spears, which would be the weapons of his battalion, which he would not be alone, since the glorious lords would accompany them until the end. This made Rizel prepare for the fight with great emotion, although at the same time we see the other girls who had finished hacking some city motorcycles, which would take them directly to combat. But at that moment we see an injured Yer who wanted to be taken to combat, and although the girls were not planning to do it, seeing how she was quickly able to defend herself from a boy without problem and hearing her say how important that mission is to her, Sakuya decided to approach to her, to ask them to make an effort together and for her to cover her in combat. But in turn we see that Risel's group had already begun to fight against numerous boys with Risel at the head, who did not leave anyone alive in his path. And the other warriors were not far behind, using both ice skills and powerful fire magic spells, things that gave Leonis the necessary time to continue gathering all the souls necessary to win, and although he did not know if they would arrive in time. The girls were already on the way to combat on their motorcycles, where they could quickly see some enemy boys, which made them finally use their sacred weapon to control their friends' motorcycles, so that they could shoot the enemy without problem, and why not cut them in half with their katana. But Risel in the middle of a combat order would end up being injured by a boy, to which, thanks to Hades, she did not suffer more than a simple scratch. But quickly, Elia noticed something more than her wound, since her dress did not stop getting hot from the combat. But she knew that she had a mission, so she returned to the fight in an instant, since she had to do her best to fulfill her promise to take care of Leo until the end, and those words were heard by the lords, who could not help but feel even more motivated, since a simple little girl was giving everything, so they should not be left behind. Although when Risel turned to look at Leo, he noticed that all the time he had gained was paying off, since Leo's soul power sphere had a size considerably large, and not only that, since it did not stop growing. But such a feat was observed by Eris, and of course it would not be allowed, so the goddess boy did not hesitate to begin to invoke her spells in Aria. So Leo ordered them to be careful to all his friends, since a burst of fire was coming, which did not take long to arrive, and in an instant the ground that our protagonists were holding was filled with a crimson fire. Although to our surprise, we see how no one ended up injured thanks to a shield that the young man managed to put them at the last second. But even so, his priority was still gathering energy, and luckily for him, he only needed a little more power, and from a distance, his friends lamented that they couldn't go faster, since the danger was more than far away, and they couldn't help but feel worried about their friends of whom they still have no news. Even as Auras regretted not arriving on time, especially when they saw that the road was in pieces. But this was not a big problem for the End, who knew that their friends' motorcycles, they had a flight mode, so they quickly managed to cross without problems, or it was like that until a void exterminator appeared in front of them, and although Relina tried to kill it immediately, her holy weapon did not even manage to scratch her body, but to her surprise, something it caused him to deviate from the path and crash to his end in a building. Although in reality it was Sherry's whip, who was surprised that his enemy died for something so weak. But although he did not like it, he was obeying his master to take care of his friends, so she once again ate a donut as a prize, and while the sky was dyed with exterminating voids, we see that our group of heroes did not give up at any time, giving the fight of their lives to the enemy, but so much effort was rewarded by listening to Leo tell him that he already had enough energy for his attack, which, before he could launch his attack against Eris once again invoked his spell of mass destruction, which surprised Leo, since it was the third time he had invoked such a spell, and to be one of level 11 was surprised that he didn't get tired, but Leo still wanted to get ahead of the attack by invoking all the power gathered to Dine's slave. But clearly the goddess would not let herself be defeated so easily, so she took a large building to finish off the young man, who she had her companion at her side, who did not hesitate for a second to fly into danger to face the titanic attack of the goddess, which had no effect on her as she managed to cut the great building in two, demonstrating her great determination to help her companion, who he couldn't help but remember his old love Riselia, who always told him that, with her demonic sword as a gift, she could eliminate even a great god, something that would be put to the test in that moment, where Eris, upon knowing his destiny, used the great holy protective barrier, something which for a second shocked Leo, since he knew how strong that defense was. But since he was already in the fight, he had no choice but to give everything to win. And on the road, we see how his friends approached and observed the gigantic boy who they had to win, which motivated Ur and scared Reina. But when Sakuya saw Ayur's determination, she knew that they had to go straight to fight, so the Inn did not hesitate to accelerate while Reina joined Ur with her light cannon mode in Sakuya. He was not far behind, using the power of his sword to try to destroy the mighty barrier, which at first they could not do anything to. But when Ayur used her own sword and shot directly towards the goddess, We see that her attack not only managed to destroy her holy barrier but also seriously injuring the goddess, something that left Leo speechless and the girls almost lifeless. They were saved from falling off a cliff, but while the goddess, seeing that her end was near, tried to convince the young man to let her live, although this did not work with Leo. He used all the power of his sword to summon a beam of mass destruction which shattered the false goddess into dust. While everyone around him could not believe what they were, seeing as a small young man with a sword ended the life of a gigantic void. But when the sunset came, the souls that in the past fell in that city could finally go to rest in peace in heaven. Although before leaving this world, William asked her not to stop training since she had become the warrior most powerful I had ever seen, and when the fight was over, the glorious lord said goodbye and left the area and then watched as Regina finally met with Rizel. Since she had been very worried about her, just like the rest of the girls, they were happy to see them safe and quickly introduced him to Yer, who they knew had fallen asleep due to fatigue. But she was the one who managed to cross the god very recently, but upon seeing her, Leo was quickly surprised, and at that moment we see a group of ships coming as they had taken a long time, and the group of Fenris had been sent to rescue them. So we finally see how they returned home, but Leo continued watching Yer, without being able to believe that she alone could have destroyed the holy protection, since no common hero could be such a feat. But while everyone was sleeping, Rizel showed Leo her fairy book that she recovered from her house, since it was something valuable to her, and that she had been able to recover it thanks to that mission. But when she heard that the book was about the Demon King, Leo couldn't help but feel curiosity, and while listening to his partner read him that book with errors, he couldn't help but get offended. Hearing that he breathed fire since he wasn't a dragon, Leo still wanted to know what happened at the end of the story with the Demon King, and upon hearing that he died in the hands of the prince, he simply did not want to know more about his silly book. But while Riselia was taking a bath, we see that Leo speaks with his two servants, where he assures that the Nefs they faced is one of the 8 demon kings of whom they obey, and they serve Israel. To which Blas swore to eliminate him as soon as he saw him, and Sherry told her master that the young woman who managed to eliminate the goddess barrier was the king of the elves. But before continuing to give information, Sherry complained to her master that he gave Rizel a dress and he never gave her clothes. So she immediately called him a fool, which the young Leo did not like. But when he heard that Rizel was coming, they immediately vanished, and the little-dressed young woman simply couldn't endure hunger, so she attacked the young man in search of fresh blood, and at that moment we see the rest of the girls and finally, who in the database, found a secret file where there are videos about what happened to the attack on the third garden. But since it was such a heavy file, it would take time to open it, and on that same night, the Queen of the Elves took the opportunity to escape from the hospital, destroying the wall and running towards freedom. But the next day, when Leo and Rizel went to eat a small one together by mistake, he threw his popcorns at the head of the protagonist who, at any other time in history, would have ended up with whoever disrespected him. But we can see that time changes. People since Leonis simply showed him a smile on his face.